volume profile changed the way I read charts forever. And today I'm breaking it down step by step so it can do the same for you. What is up, YouTube? Welcome to Major Trades. This is episode 1 of Trader's Playbook, a series focused on trading concepts, strategies, and tools used to analyze the market. In today's episode, we're breaking down volume profile, what it is, how it works, and how it can be used to identify key areas on a chart. And at the end of the video, I'll walk you through exactly how I set it up on Thinkorswim so you can replicate it on your own charts. So without further ado, let's go ahead, hop right in and get started. So volume profile is what you're seeing on the left-hand side of the screen here, these gray bars. And before we jump into in-depth on what volume profile is and how we use it, I'll go ahead and give you a brief understanding of volume because I think it's important to have context. So on any stock chart, you're going to have the time plotted along the x-axis and price plotted along the y-axis. And then volume are these blue bars here down below the price action. And so for example, on this instance, we're looking at a 3-year, 1-week chart. So we're looking at 3 years and each candle represents 1 week. And if you hover over a single candle or a single volume bar over in this box here, you'll see the volume that was traded. So for example, during this week, there was 98 million shares traded. And the same goes if you were to change the time frame down to 1 day, 1 minute. We're now looking at a single day and each candle represents 1 minute. And so during this 1 minute, there was 99,000 shares traded. And so coming back to the weekly chart here, I'll go ahead and pull that up. The volume is beneficial, traditional volume is beneficial because it gives us an understanding of participation behind a move. So for example, during this week, if you have a big red candle, a large move accompanied with high volume, what that indicates is there is a large participation behind the move. So if you have a stock that moves a lot or just breaks out or breaks down, but it's on low volume, what that can indicate is a false breakout, false move. And what it's telling you is there's not much participation behind the move. So when we're looking for breakouts and whatnot, we want to use volume as a indicator, so to speak, that tells us, is there participation behind the move? Because again, what volume is telling you is the number of transactions that occurred during that specified time. And so if you have a lot of buyers and sellers along that day or week or whatever the time frame is you're looking at, generally speaking, what that's telling you is that there were a lot of people who agreed on the price and the transactions that occurred. If you have very few people, there's not as many people to say, I agree with this transaction and I'm going to, execute my transaction along that time frame. So volume profile, again, is very similar to volume. It is volume, but it's just flipped. So instead of it being on the x-axis with time, it's on the y-axis with price. And so as you can imagine, what that tells us is the number of shares traded along a specified price. And so before I tell you how we use it, I want to break down the nomenclature of what it is and how traders talk about volume profile. So volume profile, there's pretty much 3 things that traders are going to talk about. So those are the HVN, LVN, and POC. So HVN stands for high volume nodes, and those are the areas you see here where there's high volume, so the larger spikes, so to speak. You have your LVN, which as you can imagine are the low volume nodes. Those are kind of the gaps or the valleys within the volume profile. And finally, the POC, which is point of control, and that is going to be the highest volume for the price. And so in this instance, it's right around that $22, $21 range. So these areas are important because they tell us where the most and least transactions occurred. So for example, in these high volume nodes, those are where the most transactions occurred, which can be beneficial to us as traders because it can tell us where price will react to in the future. So again, it's not always an exact science, but it tells us where transactions occurred in the past and where we can expect people to step in or step away in the future. So if you're at a high volume node or the stock's coming into a high volume node, that could be an indication that there are going to be buyers or sellers stepping in. So if the stock price is pushing up into a high volume node, that can be a warning signal for you that there might be supply coming to market in that area, so there might be sellers stepping in. And the opposite is true. If the stock is falling down into a high volume node, that can mean that buyers are going to step in that level. So, with the point of control, that's the highest volume node, so to speak. And so if the stock is selling off into the point of control, that can be an indication that buyers might step in at that level. So it's another way and it's another depth, so to speak, when drawing support and resistance or having an understanding of where those levels might come into play. And so volume profile gives us a true backing behind those levels. And so I kind of skipped over the low volume nodes are just areas where there's not much volume traded. So a lot of times what happens is you'll see a stock kind of just go right through those levels. So you might see it rip right through instead of, encountering any true levels of buyers and sellers stepping in at those levels. So that's kind of a summary of volume profile and how we use it. The only thing I would warn you and give you insight into is I always recommend volume and volume profile, right? It's context. So it's not going to be an end-all be-all thing that's going to tell you, okay, you should buy at this level or you should sell at this level. All it is context. It's telling you where traders participated within the market along specified price. And so you can use it in your trading, but it is a singular point, singular data point, and so you should combine it with other things. So for example, just because the price action is selling into the point of control doesn't mean you should necessarily buy the stock. If your criteria, for example, was the stock is selling off into the point of control, the stock has earnings beats over the past 3 quarters, it's breaking above, the 50 EMA or whatever it may be, the stock is turning around on high volume, then and you make an entry, then okay, that is a trading criteria that you have, and that is something. But volume profile in itself is just context. So I think that's a very important point to break out. All right, so I know in the beginning I promised that I would show you how I set up volume profile on my chart, so I'll go ahead and do that now. So in Thinkorswim, if you're using Thinkorswim, you'll come to Studies here, you'll hit Edit Studies, and then on the left search bar here, Volume Profile, and you can go ahead and add it. I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like here. So this is without any edits, and I don't really like the way it looks. I think there's way too much going on. It interferes with the chart, and so that's why I go ahead and change it to the following. So if you want to look like that on what I have on the left-hand side there, just those gray bars, you can come in here and edit your study. The first thing I like to do is go ahead and uncheck all of these boxes for each of these tabs here. And what that does is that's just going to kind of clear up the volume profile, get rid of some of those extra lines on there. So as we do that, the next thing that we'll want to do is come back up to the top here, and on expansion, you'll want to change that to no. And then I like to show the point of control, and then you'll want to take off the value area and get rid of that. And then finally, to change the colors, you'll come down to globals, and then down here is where you'll change the color. We got rid of the value area, so there's no reason to mess with that color. Point of control you can keep. I like to just say change the color. Profile, you can make it whatever color you want. We'll go ahead and make it orange in this instance so you can see. And go ahead and hit apply. Okay, and so now as you can see, the volume profile is on the left-hand side of the chart. It's behind the price action. And in this instance, it's plotted in orange with your point of control in red. So that is all for episode 1 of Trader's Playbook. If you enjoyed this video and want to continue building your trading knowledge, be sure to check out the other videos in this series, which should be popping up on your screen now. And if you found this video helpful, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. If there is any trading topic that you would like covered in future episode of Trader's Playbook, let me know in the comments down below and I'll be sure to cover it. Thank you for watching. Major Trades signing off. Peace.